My wife Bethany looked me dead in the eye and said loud enough for half the restaurant to hear that I'd never measure up to her high school boyfriend. Yeah, that actually happened. 40 years since we first met, 36 years married, and she drops that bomb like it's nothing. The silence afterward was thick. People at nearby tables stopped eating. I watched this drop of wine hanging on the edge of her glass, and I swear even it wanted to escape. Bethany just sat there with this smug look, like she'd scored some major victory. Meanwhile, I'm sitting across from her thinking about how I spent 2 years designing our house from scratch, how I retired early so she could pursue her yoga instructor certification and sit on nonprofit boards, and how lately she's been acting weird. I didn't react, though, just finished chewing my steak, wiped my mouth with the napkin, and said thanks for letting me know. Our friends at the table looked mortified. One couple suddenly remembered they had somewhere to be. The waiter stood there holding my dessert, clearly debating whether to run. But I stayed calm, took the creme brulee, and ate it slowly. Here's the thing nobody knew, especially Bethany. I wasn't shocked. I'd been noticing things for months. Her gym bag smelling like men's cologne, that definitely wasn't mine. Her sudden interest in whiskey sours, which, according to an old yearbook I found, was her ex's drink. The playlist on her phone full of 90s throwback songs. And the real kicker, she was wearing this emerald necklace that I'd found in a sealed box in our attic 5 years ago. She told me back then that she'd pawned it during a rough financial patch. Now, here it was, glinting around her neck like a neon billboard. So yeah, I wasn't surprised. I was prepared. As we left the restaurant, I heard her whispering to her friend loud enough for me to catch it. He just sat there like a statue, doesn't even fight for me anymore. They thought I'd cracked, that I'd go hide in my office and sulk while she posted cryptic Instagram stories with her wedding ring conspicuously absent. But I wasn't sulking. I was executing a plan. 2 months earlier, I'd hired a digital forensics company. Nothing sketchy, just a referral from a buddy who'd been through his own messy divorce. It started when Bethany accidentally sent me a Venmo payment meant for someone named Kyle. The note said last night was incredible, with 3 fire emojis and a wink face. When I asked about it, she claimed it was meant for her friend Janet, right? Janet, who lives 3 states away and thinks smartphones are the devil's work. That little mistake cost her everything. I had her phone mirrored legally through a shared cloud account. Every photo, every text, every voice memo now synced to a folder she didn't know existed. I didn't even look at it right away. I waited. Let her keep digging. Let her think she was getting away with it. And after that anniversary dinner, after she publicly humiliated me, I knew the hole was deep enough. In the car, she asked if I was going to say anything. I looked at her like she was a stranger and unlocked the doors and got in without a word. Let her talk. Let her text whoever she wanted about what a loser I was. I had it all. Every late-night message, every "I wish you were here" text she thought was private. While she fell asleep that night, smug and satisfied, I opened my laptop and typed one word to my attorney. Proceed. The group chat messages started within 20 minutes of us getting home. I was still taking off my shoes when she sent the first one. He just sat there like a complete loser. Then came the selfie she'd taken at the restaurant with me blurry in the background, mid-bite. She captioned it, "This man thinks we're still in love." Her friends all laughed. Even her cousin, who'd cried on our couch when her own relationship fell apart, was in on the joke now. I didn't respond, didn't confront her, just walked past her in the hallway while she giggled at her phone. She called out mockingly, "Don't worry, Philip, you were a great audience tonight." I stopped only to adjust the thermostat she always cranked up when she drank cheap wine. Then I went to my office and opened the laptop she'd never bothered learning the password to. The folder was ready. Exit package. PDF copies of our trust agreement, a timeline spreadsheet tracking every suspicious transaction from the past 18 months, screenshots of all her mirrored messages, and a scanned copy of our prenup that she thought had expired but legally hadn't. I typed a brief message to my lawyer. As discussed, initiate process under the Public Disparagement Clause. Reference Addendum 3, pages 4 and 7. Upload full documentation to court portal with confidentiality flag on subject. Then I attached the file and hit send. There was no satisfaction in that moment, no smugness. Just this strange stillness that comes when you realize the person sleeping down the hall isn't who you thought they were anymore. Bethany was still on a video call with her friend, recounting the toast like it was her finest hour. And I said, "You'll never be half the man my ex is. You should have seen his face. He looked like a kicked puppy. Her friend's voice crackled through the speaker. Girl, that's iconic. You should be on reality TV. Did he even react? Nope, Bethany said, taking a long sip of wine. Like a statue. Honestly, I think he's losing it. Makes this whole thing easier. I stood by the fridge just long enough to see her reflection in the microwave door. So pleased with herself. So completely unaware that she hadn't just embarrassed a man tonight. She'd detonated her own safety net. Most people don't realize they're in a trap until it's already closed. By the time she finished her third glass of wine, my attorney had already submitted emergency documents. The house she thought we co-owned was flagged under asset reassessment. The shared account she'd used for her shopping sprees was frozen by court order. She thought she'd humiliated me in front of friends. What she really did was hand me legal ammunition with witnesses. At 1:17 in the morning, her laughter changed, not the loud attention-seeking cackle from earlier. This was quieter, more intimate. The kind she used to save for me. I heard it through the wall. She was lying in bed whispering into her phone like a teenager. I didn't need to listen in. I already had copies of everything. Her iCloud backups were mirrored to my secure device. Nothing illegal, just a recovery trick my IT friend showed me. Create a secondary device under the same Apple ID, register it quietly, let it sync. All legal, all trackable, all hers. So I knew when she typed, "Guess who I humiliated tonight?" I saw the photo she attached of me looking down at my dessert, carefully cropped to remove her wine glass, and her friend's shocked expressions. Then the follow-up text. Wish it was you I came home to, with a black heart emoji. His name was Kyle, the same Kyle from the Venmo incident. Turns out he used to bartend at a resort we stayed at years ago. She ran into him at a yoga retreat last spring, the one she swore had no cell reception. Apparently it did, just not for me. He's a landscaping contractor now with an ego you could see from space. And she was trying to resurrect some fantasy version of their summer fling like it was a romantic movie. She thought this was power, that mocking me in private messages made her some kind of femme fatale. But it wasn't seduction. It was evidence. At 1:21, she sent him another message. You were always better in bed even back then. Wish I hadn't settled. I didn't even flinch. Just click download on the archive, syncing everything from her cloud to my secured drive. All labeled, all time-stamped, all admissible in court. People think betrayal hurts because of the cheating. It doesn't. It hurts because of the confidence behind it. The way they act, like you'll never figure it out. Like you're too slow, too kind, too old, too blind to notice. Like your silence means stupidity. But in my silence, I was documenting everything. By 2 in the morning, her entire photo library had synced, including shots from last weekend's girls-only trip. The one where she said they stayed in and watched movies. Funny, I don't remember her friends having warrior tattoos on their hips or hands rough enough to belong to someone who works construction. There he was, Kyle shirtless, holding a champagne bottle in the background while Bethany posed with a pout. She'd saved it under a generic file name. Lazy and predictable, I forwarded everything to my attorney. Supplemental materials, disparagement, infidelity evidence. No commentary, no emotion, just data. In the bedroom, her phone buzzed again. She giggled softly as she typed another reply. I didn't bother checking. I didn't need more. The goal wasn't confrontation, it was construction. Brick by digital brick, I was building the wall she'd eventually slam into. She thought she was writing a love story. I was writing the conclusion. At 3:12 in the morning, Bethany was snoring softly next to an empty wine glass. At 3:13, I was logged into our family financial dashboard. She'd never bothered learning how it worked. That was always Philip's thing. She'd tell dinner guests. Her talents were more interpersonal. She could charm waiters into free desserts and remembered everyone's birthday. But estate structuring and tax-sheltered investments, that lived in my world. And tonight, that world closed its doors on her. I started with the joint brokerage account, $500,000 in change. Not bad for a guy she called retired and boring. I'd set up the firewall a year ago when she first started getting too busy for our Sunday rituals. The trust had been dormant then, just a shell. Tonight it activated. The money moved into the Whitmore Heritage Irrevocable Trust. Irrevocable being the key word. Bethany's name wasn't anywhere near it. Whitmore was my mother's maiden name. I'd used it on all the paperwork just in case she ever went snooping. By 326, the trust owned the brokerage account, the post-retirement real estate fund, my pension rollover, and a bonus, the residuals from a patent I'd sold back in 2009. Small but poetic, next was the house. She thought it was ours, even joked once about hanging her Pilates certificate in the guest room. But the title hadn't been in our names for over 4 years. When my niece graduated law school, we formed a holding company called Redwood Capital LLC. I told Bethany it was a tax write-off for my niece's internship. She bought it completely. In reality, Redwood bought our house. Cash, quietly. I still paid property taxes, still did yard work, still fixed the gutters. But legally, we were tenants with a month-to-month agreement. The only difference between a landlord and a husband is paperwork, and I had plenty. By 341, I'd filed a notice of reorganization with the county clerk. Routine and automatic, but it ensured that in any asset audit, Bethany's name would appear where? Her contribution to the property had been a Pinterest board and an aggressive argument over kitchen backsplash. 349. I opened the secondary checking account I'd seeded long ago for emergencies. That emergency had arrived. I moved the remaining joint funds, $87,492.14. Clean sweep. Bethany had always insisted on using a black Amex with her name on it for the status. The joint card connected to actual money she hadn't used since Easter. That worked out perfectly. By 4 o'clock, I'd rerouted all statement mailings to a P.O. box registered to the trust. I even updated the online profile image to a raven. Not because I'm superstitious, but because I like the symbolism of a bird that waits, watches, and never forgets. I closed the laptop and poured myself water. Bethany stirred in bed, rolled over, mumbled something about the thermostat being broken, then curled back into sleep. No, sweetheart, and the thermostat works fine. You're the one who's frozen out. Tomorrow she'd wake up thinking she still had options, still had leverage, still had some version of me waiting around for her tantrum to pass. But tonight I'd become untouchable. While she dreamed about Kyle's compliments and her next Instagram caption, I'd locked every exit behind her. I woke up at 9:43, a luxury I hadn't allowed myself in years. Sunlight pushed through the blinds, slicing across the hardwood like quiet applause. I stretched, felt my joints pop in that satisfying way that comes with age and wisdom. Made French press coffee, Kenyan roast, the good stuff I'd been saving. Took my time grinding the beans, heating the water to exactly the right temperature. No rush, no urgency. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt completely at peace. When I finally checked my phone around 10, the screen lit up like a panic attack having a panic attack. 255 missed calls. Bethany, her sister, unknown numbers, one listed as yoga studio, another from a number with an out-of-state area code. Probably Kyle doing his best impression of someone who mattered. The notification badges looked like they were screaming at me, but I just took another sip of coffee and smiled. The voicemails were absolutely spectacular. First one, Bethany screaming. Not crying, not upset, but feral screaming like a wounded animal. Why is my card declined? I'm at the gas station and this cashier's holding my wallet hostage. Philip, call me right now. She was breathing like she'd run a marathon, fueled entirely by entitlement and disbelief. You could hear the panic rising in her voice with each word. Next message, her sister Lorraine. Fake sweet but clearly on edge, trying to sound reasonable while barely containing her own confusion. Philip, I don't know what's happening, but Bethany is hysterical. She said the house is locked. Changed locks. Are you okay? I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. She kept emphasizing that last word like saying it enough times would make it true. That word again. Misunderstanding. Like infidelity is just poor communication, like betrayal is just a mix-up that can be cleared up with a quick phone call. The third voicemail was my personal favorite, the one I'd probably save forever. Kyle's number. Short and clipped, trying to sound tough, but you could hear the uncertainty underneath. Hey man, not sure what's going on, but Bethany is really upset. Thought maybe we could talk, man to man. I didn't even finish listening. Let the voicemail delete itself like it was never worth the storage space. Meanwhile, texts were coming in rapid fire, one after another, each more desperate than the last. Philip, this isn't funny. Are you seriously freezing me out? The mortgage company said the account name changed. Where is our money? What did you do? You can't just do this. We need to talk. Answer your phone. This is insane. Each message more frantic than the last, the tone shifting from anger to confusion to something approaching genuine fear. But what caught my attention wasn't the screaming or the threats or even the desperation. It was the timestamps. Her first attempt was at 7:12 in the morning, right after her usual coffee purchase was declined at her favorite overpriced cafe. She thought it was a glitch, probably rolled her eyes at the barista and pulled out another card. Then her debit card failed at the gas station at 7:28. By 7:30, she was at her sister's house using Lorraine's phone to call me repeatedly, probably pacing back and forth in that frantic way she did when things didn't go according to plan. By 8:15, she called the bank, and I can only imagine that conversation. By 8:27, she probably said the words unauthorized account modification for the first time in her life, her voice shaking as the customer service rep explained that everything was perfectly legal. By 8:59, she called her lawyer, or at least tried to, because her lawyer probably wasn't even awake yet. I know because the bank's fraud department called me for verification at 9:01, just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee and considering whether to make eggs or just enjoy the morning in peace. The representative was professional, courteous, asked me to confirm several transactions and account changes. I confirmed everything calmly, methodically, like I was discussing the weather. Yes, that's correct. Yes, I authorized that. Yeah, the trust restructuring was intentional. No, there's no fraud here. Everything is exactly as it should be. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't running. I was simply reorganizing my life, and every single action I'd taken was completely legal. By 10:06, the last voicemail came in. Bethany again, quieter this time, but somehow more dangerous, like a wounded animal backed into a corner. If you don't call me back, I swear I will make this ugly. I will ruin you, Philip. You think you're smart? You think you're the sufferer? You have no idea what I'm capable of. No, Bethany, I was the sufferer. Past tense. Now I'm just the man holding all the receipts. She tried calling one more time as I opened my news app. I declined mid-ring. Let her sit in that rejection. Let her marinate in the echo chamber, where she'd always assumed I was the lesser person. She still hadn't figured out that her power had been rented, leased through my goodwill, financed by my patience, and I'd just repossessed every inch of it. I took a sip of coffee. Calm, steady, clean. Sometimes revenge doesn't require shouting. Sometimes it just requires not answering the phone. By 11:02, Bethany was driving like a woman possessed, wearing sunglasses that didn't hide the mascara streaked down her face. Phone on speaker, bouncing between her lap and the console, still calling me every 5 minutes like repetition could summon control. She didn't notice traffic lights or honking horns. All she knew was her name no longer worked at the bank, her cards were dead, and the mortgage company mentioned something about corporate restructuring. Her reality was bleeding at the edges. She needed the house, the place with rose bushes she pretended to water for Instagram, the kitchen where she burned soup but filmed herself plating takeout like a chef, the upstairs bathroom with the mirror she called her confidence booster because it made her look younger than Philip deserves. That house was more than Wallstar. It was her stage. So when she pulled into the driveway at 11:49, she expected to storm inside, find me brooding, and launch into her monologue about what I really meant by all this. Maybe even cry. She was good at strategic tears. But the house didn't greet her. The keypad glared red. Her key didn't fit. She tried again, harder, jamming it like force could negotiate. Then the side door. Same result. Even the garage had a new panel. The panic rose faster this time. Not the controlled chaos of morning bank calls. This was raw, primal confusion. She pounded on the door with both fists, shouting, "Philip, open this door right now. What the hell is this?" Nothing. The house was silent. She pressed her face to the dining room window, shielding her eyes from glare. That's when it hit her. The chandelier she'd insisted we install was gone. The dining table replaced by something sleek and modern. Glass and chrome instead of reclaimed wood. No trace of the beige runner she'd bought from that overpriced boutique. No framed wedding photo on the shelf. And the worst part, shoes by the door. Not mine, not hers. New ones. Women's size 7 maybe. Black flats. Neatly aligned on a mat she didn't buy. Her face went pale. She ran to the back patio, Tried to slide open the door she used to leave ajar for fresh air. It didn't budge. She rattled it, stomped, screamed. A voice called from across the street. Bethany, she turned. It was Harold, retired and perpetually nosy, always trimming his hedges like the yard was a battlefield. I thought you moved out last week, he said, blinking. Didn't know you were coming back. She stared at him like she'd been slapped. What are you talking about? He scratched his chin, oblivious. That younger woman with the curly hair? She moved in last Thursday. Thought it was your niece or something. I said hello. She said she was the new tenant. Place looks great, by the way. Tenant. The word echoed in her head. She turned back to the house. The mat at the door no longer said welcome. It said live deliberately. A new life had started in her house without her. Bethany stood frozen for 30 seconds before grabbing her phone. No missed calls, no new messages. She typed fast, thumb shaking. Philip, we need to talk. This isn't funny anymore. Did you rent the house? Sell it? I have rights. You can't do this. I will call a lawyer. But I'd already seen it. The text synced to my archive folder in real time, landing next to last night's flirty whispers and this morning's meltdown. She tried calling again, straight to voicemail. Across town, I sat in a downtown cafe sipping espresso, reading the lease agreement my niece had drafted. 12-month term, paid in full. Tenant Natasha Brennan, my niece. Law degree. Excellent credit. Zero tolerance for drama. The house hadn't vanished. It had simply moved on. And Bethany was locked outside of a life she thought she could humiliate and still own. The doorbell rang at exactly 3:06. Lorraine opened it, still in her robe, annoyed. She was halfway through her second mimosa and didn't appreciate surprises, especially not from couriers holding clipboards. Signature required, the man said. Brown uniform, clean clipboard, envelope thick enough to hurt. No return address. For Bethany. That's my sister, Lorraine cut in. She's here. I'll wait, he said, already raising the stylus. Bethany came stomping down the hallway, barefoot, phone still in hand, from her 50th unanswered call to me. Her hair was a mess, eyeliner smudged into war paint. She looked like she'd run a marathon through legal chaos. She signed without reading, assumed it was from a lawyer or the bank or maybe even a pathetic apology from me with flowers, like I used to send when we were 25 and still believed in soft landings. Instead, she opened the envelope and pulled out the first document. Marriage dissolution via trust severance. Not a divorce filing. Not a request. A declaration. Full summary, neutral tone, deadly consequences. The trust that shielded every asset was formally, irrevocably severed from her. No appeal, no negotiation. Second page, court notification. Transfer of ownership, validated, stamped, signed, official. The house she'd just been locked out of was never hers. The bank acknowledged the full transfer. The new tenant, Natasha Brennan, was fully legal, fully paid. Bethany had as much standing as a raccoon on the porch. Third page, a still image. Low resolution, cropped but unmistakable. Her phone screen, message bubble. Guess who I humiliated tonight? Under it, my face. Bored, chewing steak, unaware she was staging a photo for the man she'd been fantasizing about all year. Then the final piece. A handwritten note, single sentence. Centered. This wasn't about him. This was about you not seeing me. No signature, no threat, no flourish. Just that. The world didn't end in screaming. It ended in moans. She sat down on the couch without saying a word. Lorraine asked, "What is it?" once, maybe twice. No answer. Bethany just stared at the note like it had hit her harder than any courtroom ever could. It hadn't just told her she lost, it told her why. She'd always believed humiliation was a power move, something to toss out like confetti while I stood beneath it, smiling through gritted teeth. But this was calculated, choreographed, clean. And for once, there was no audience. No laughing group chat, just a couch, a courier slip, and a truth she couldn't twist. She arrived late to the cafe, of course, wearing oversized sunglasses that didn't match her outfit and a wrinkled blouse that looked like it had been pulled from her sister's guest room floor. Her hair, usually styled within an inch of its life, hung limp. Her posture screamed defiance, but her hands betrayed her, fidgeting, gripping her purse strap like it could anchor her to some version of reality that hadn't already dissolved. The cafe was neutral territory. Mid-tier, mid-town, clean, beige, boring, no memories, no nostalgia, just quiet jazz and the whir of an espresso machine. I was already seated. Black coffee, no cream, no sugar, just the taste of finality. She spotted me, adjusted her glasses like armor, and walked over with fake composure that burned calories. She didn't say hello, didn't sit right away. I have no idea what this is supposed to prove, she snapped, arms crossed. You think playing some weird lawyer card game makes you look strong? It makes you look petty. I sipped my coffee, set it down, then slid a folder across the table with 2 fingers. Calm, surgical, silent. She didn't touch it, just stared. You said I'm not half the man your ex is. I said quietly. Good news. He gets half the blame, too. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. What is this? Documentation, I said. In case you needed help remembering who played what role. She finally opened it. First page, a bank transaction timeline. Not mine, hers. Tagged purchases, hotel stays, withdrawals in odd cities. Timestamps cross-referenced with photos she'd sent me from supposedly different places. Second page, GPS data. Her phone, her car, location histories pulled legally through shared auto insurance logins she never updated. She always said I was too old school to understand tech. Turns out I was just quiet. Third page, photos. Private investigator 6 weeks worth. Bethany kissing Kyle in a Holiday Inn Express parking lot 2 hours before she told me her friend had a wellness emergency. Another shot. Her checking into a lakeside rental with 1 bed, not 2. Time-stamped. She flipped faster now, hands shaking, still trying to find the page that would explain it away, reframe the narrative, reclaim the spotlight. Instead, she hit the final section. Her own texts, printed and highlighted. You were always better in bed. I wish it was you I came home to. Philip just sat there, what a joke. I watched the moment it clicked. Not just that I knew, but that I'd planned to know. That I hadn't stumbled into this. I'd built it. This is low, she muttered, pushing the folder away like it might bite. No, Bethany, I said. You went low. I just kept the receipts. She blinked fast, voice tighter. You could have come to me. We could have talked about this like adults, worked through it. Christ, Philip, we have history. I leaned in, smiling just enough to sting. You had a choice, partnership or performance. You chose the stage. This is your closing act. She sat back, folding her arms. So what now? You want an apology? A confession? I took one last sip of coffee. No, I said. I want exactly what I already got. Peace. She didn't get up, didn't scream. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, Bethany was completely still. The weight of the folder on the table seemed to grow, each page an anvil. As I stood to leave, I paused behind her chair. I let you play your game, I said quietly. Now I'm just cashing in the score. Then I walked out. No final jab, no lingering look. Just silence, and her alone at the table, holding evidence that her show was over. The email came at 8:03 sharp. Subject line, mandatory appearance, confidential mediation review from a law office she didn't recognize, addressed formally, no dramatic threats, no caps lock, no ultimatums. Just a date, a time, and an address uptown. Professional, surgical. Bethany forwarded it to Lorraine with, he's pulling one of his legal mind games again, eye roll emoji. Whatever, I'll show up and shut it down. She showed up in heels too tall for confidence and makeup too thick for mourning. She walked into the building like she was still the protagonist, still the woman who could spin a narrative if she just spoke fast enough. The receptionist offered water. She declined. Admitting thirst was, in her mind, a kind of weakness. A tall, stone-faced man in a charcoal suit opened the door to the meeting room. Ms. Whitmore, this way. The room was cold. One long table, 3 chairs, a flat screen on the wall already playing, muted. She froze mid-step, on screen a still from the restaurant. Her face twisted mid-toast, eyes glinting with cruelty, wine glass raised. Then video. Her voice crystal clear. You'll never be half the man my ex is. Laughter, hers louder than she remembered. Me calmly chewing, unmoved. She blinked rapidly, as if that could turn it off. Is this some dramatic little project? She snapped. Did he hire a filmmaker for this? The lawyer said nothing. The screen changed. Footage from a hotel lobby. Her checking in with Kyle, wearing yoga leggings and oversized sunglasses, her hand resting on his chest at the reception desk. Next, them in the hotel bar clinking glasses, his hand on her thigh. Then a cabin porch. Bethany curled in his lap, laughing, shirt half off. Camera angle low, far off, long lens. She stepped back, instinctive, primitive. That's a violation, she stammered. The lawyer, still silent, clicked the remote and paused the video. The screen froze on her kissing Kyle outside a rental car. I believe, he said calmly, you referred to these as your weekends with friends. Bethany's knees almost buckled. She caught the chair and dropped into it. No one was supposed to see that, she whispered. We have bank statements, text logs, hotel bookings, the lawyer continued, sliding another folder toward her. All admissible. You've publicly disparaged your husband in front of multiple witnesses. You've committed ongoing infidelity. You've used joint assets to fund those activities. She didn't respond. Her mascara was cracking now, betraying the shock she was trying to suppress. And, he said, flipping to the final document, you breached the moral behavior clause in your prenuptial agreement. An agreement that, I must clarify, never expired. Bethany looked up, lip trembling. You're bluffing. He wouldn't go public. That's not who he is. The lawyer held her gaze. I'm not here to convince you he would. I'm here to ask if you'd prefer he didn't. Silence. Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a pen. These are the terms. You waive any claims to the house. No spousal support. You retain your car, your personal belongings, and a modest severance payment from the trust. Signed, not negotiated. She stared down at the folder, her own name printed in cold font above the words waiver of entitlement. Her voice cracked when she spoke. He really filmed everything. The lawyer didn't answer. He didn't have to. The screen behind him spoke for itself. Her past projected, her lies documented, her performances finally seen without the filter, without the edits. And there she was, not the woman she tried to be, but the woman she was. All it took was pressing play. The courthouse lobby smelled like polish and cold air conditioning. Sterile, unfeeling, like the place had forgotten what empathy looked like. I stood by a marble column near the exit. Calm, tailored gray jacket, hands loosely folded. No tie, no briefcase, just one envelope in my hand. Cream-colored, heavy stock paper. My face was unreadable. Not cold, not cruel, just done. Bethany came rushing in like a storm that had run out of wind. Her heels clacked against stone floor, loud in the silence. She wore black like she was mourning something, but whether it was her marriage or her image, no one could say. Her mascara, applied too carefully, was already smudging. Her lips trembled from something that wasn't cold. Philip, wait, she said, half breathless. Can we just talk for 1 second? I didn't flinch, didn't move toward her, just looked at her like someone examining a house that had already burned down. I didn't think you'd go through with all this. I thought we could, we've been through worse, haven't we? Her voice cracked like ice under weight. I held out the envelope, said nothing. She hesitated, then took it with both hands like it might explode. It didn't. It just sat there, quiet, final, heavier than it looked. I didn't mean it the way it sounded that night, she said quickly, rambling now. The thing I said about Kyle, it was stupid. I was drunk and angry, and I finally spoke. Calm. Measured. You said I'm not half the man your ex is. Bethany's face crumpled, eyes glassy. She nodded once. Silent tears now. Raw regret twisted with the realization that nothing she said was going to rewind the last few months. I leaned in slightly, close enough for her to smell faint black coffee and something like finality. Turns out, I said softly, you're not even half the woman I thought you were. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. No yelling, no guilt tripping, no threats of what comes next. Just the sound of my shoes tapping once, twice, then fading into quiet as the heavy doors opened. Bethany stood in the center of the lobby, envelope still in hand, shaking as families and lawyers and strangers passed by, no one stopping, no one seeing her the way she needed to be seen. Inside the envelope was no letter, no parting words, just a single printed page. Finalized agreement, signed, filed, executed. And below that, a small printed quote, faint in gray ink. Some endings aren't loud, they're clean. And for the first time in her life, Bethany realized silence could be louder than any revenge.